Welcome to the Public Library Survey Training for New Directors. I'm Terry Blauvelt, the Statistical Research Analyst for the Missouri State Library and the Administrator of the Public Library Survey. The purpose of the PLS is to collect data from the approximately 150 library districts in Missouri to create statewide statistics. These statistics can be used to follow grant spending, evaluate programs, influence policy at the state and local level, and provide individual libraries with requested datasets catered to their needs. The reporting of your library's data is required by Missouri State Statute 181 and by a mandate from the United States Congress. The data you report will be from the most recently completed library fiscal year. This is the fiscal year established by your library. The PLS must be completed and submitted by November the 15th. We plan to have the survey open for data entry around the beginning of August and will notify the directors through email when it is open. It is best to complete the submission of your library's data well before the deadline. The composition of the survey can be broken down into three major parts: questions, responses, and definitions. The questions are based on the required responses to the Institute of Museum and Library Services and the Missouri State Library. The definitions are based on the IMLS definitions. Both the questions and the definitions can potentially change on a yearly basis. The great majority of the questions and definitions will remain the same from year to year. The responses are provided by the individual library districts. Some of the responses are pre-populated by the Missouri State Library in order to minimize the time spent collecting and inputting data. Data is collected for 11 different subject areas. We will go over each of the subject areas in varying levels of detail. The first subject area in the PLS is current administrative information. This includes data on the library location, director, contact information, legislative districts, and census population. We use data provided from the prior year's PLS submission to pre-populate the majority of the responses in this section. Please double-check the responses to ensure the correctness of the data. If changes need to be made to gray boxes, send the change to the email address at the top of the page, which is terry.blauvelt@sos.mo.gov. The legal service area is a continuation of the administrative information and includes the fiscal reporting dates and number of libraries by type to include main, branch, or bookmobile. Most of this section is pre-populated. Public service outlets cover the name, location, and hours of all the libraries in the district. Much of this section is pre-populated. Personnel is arranged on 2 pages and includes general information on librarians, employees, full-time equivalent employee hours, and volunteers. More specific information is collected on the library district director. Operating revenue encompasses all of the regular financial income of the library and is broken down into 4 categories: local income, state government income, federal government income, and other income. All regular income and grant income should be reported somewhere within this section. This section is largely self-explanatory. Operating expenditures cover all the expenses of a library to include staff expenditures, collection expenditures, funds from athlete and entertainer tax, and funds spent from equalization. Capital revenue expenses give many library directors unfounded concerns. Most libraries will not have capital revenue, and the libraries that do have capital revenue do not always have it on a regular basis. In order to count as capital revenue, it must be collected as capital revenue via a special tax, bond, or specific donation and be used for a specific capital project outlined in the header of this section. Funds collected as general revenue, unspecified or general donations, and regular bonds cannot be counted as capital revenue. Capital expenditures are different. As long as the capital project qualifies as a capital project, such as site acquisition, new buildings, additions or renovations of library buildings, furnishings, equipment, and initial collections for new buildings, building additions or building renovations, library automation systems, new vehicles, and other one-time major projects, and the funds are spent on one of the aforementioned projects, it can be counted as a capital expenditure. As a librarian, I am sure you are familiar with the physical materials category. These are materials you can touch, have to find shelf space to display, and etc. Electronic materials are not as easy to define. While these are obviously electronic, there's similarities in there. This category will likely change and encompass more as time goes on. Hopefully we will perfect the definitions in the process. For now we have 2 categories: library held and consortia held materials. If the electronic materials are for sole use of your library and they are selected by your library and held by or on behalf of your library, they count in the library held materials. If they do not meet the 3 parameters previously listed and they are held by a consortium, they will go into the appropriate consortia held materials response. As previously stated, the category of electronic materials will change, likely on a yearly basis, as many materials transition to these formats and new formats are developed and implemented. The services section covers a wide range of statistics covering everything from annual library visits and interlibrary loans to the circulation of materials. While the majority of this section is rather straightforward and requires exact numbers, questions 8.01 through 8.04 allow estimates based on real numbers. While it's best to have exact numbers, this isn't always possible to track. If your library does not track the data needed for questions 8.01 through 8.04 on a yearly basis, track the transactions for a regular week and then multiply this number by 52 to get a yearly total. Circulation figures should come from your automation system, or in the case of a consortia held electronic materials, from the consortia vendor. Some consortia vendors do not break down circulation to the age categories. If your vendor does not break down the circulation by age category, put the total circulation in the adult category and leave an edit explaining that the vendor does not break down the circulation by age. Programs are counted each time they meet. If a program meets once a month for the whole year, it would count as 12 programs. Program attendance is figured in the same way. Each time the program meets, the number of persons at the program count towards the annual attendance. For instance, if the same 10 people meet at our aforementioned monthly program, the annual attendance would be 120. Most of the technology section is comprised of drop-down selection boxes. For these questions, simply select the answer that applies to your library. The remainder of the section asks for counts of computer equipment available to the public and the time spent on a monthly basis in computer training classes. This completes the new Director's Training for the Public Library Survey. We offer additional training videos on watch.more.net. Please check them out. If you have any questions, please contact the Missouri State Library at 1-800-325-0131. Have a great day.